up guys? In today's video, I'm going to be walking you through how to create the look I'm wearing right here using the new Viseart Neutral Mattes Milieu palette. Talked about this recently in my Muse Beauty sale video. They sent this to me and at the time I had just gotten it in the mail, so all I really did was swatch it, give some initial opinions, but a lot of you guys had questions about it, so I did a tutorial on Instagram I can link to below if you're interested because it's totally different than this one right here, but in that video, I used this not only on my eyes, but also on my face as well. So I thought that might be something fun to go more in depth with in a longer, chattier video here on YouTube. So that's what we're gonna do here today. And you do not need this palette. I mean, if you're interested in this palette, it's currently 15% off at Muse, which is a pretty good deal for Viseart, but you don't need this palette to do this. It's full of wonderful mattes, a few colorful shades, berries, plums are primarily what I'm using today. And I'm sure you can find similar shades already in your collection. If you want to recreate this on your own, this is just sort of inspiration for what you can do with these shades, and also to kind of get you and me continuing to think about ways that I can use my shadows, not just on my eyes, but everywhere else, my face, really wherever you want them. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so you can see I've jumped ahead a little bit, skipped some things so we can get right to the good stuff. I'll tell you real quick what I'm wearing before we get started. For foundation, I applied the Believe Beauty Skin Finish Foundation. I use the shade Soft Beige. For concealer, I use the Charlotte Tilbury Magic Away Liquid Concealer in the shade number 3. And then on my brows, the same, I mean, really all of this stuff is what I've been talking about in recent favorites videos, but just for the sake of making sure I mention it if you're curious, I use the CoverGirl Ultra Fine and Define Brow Pencil to fill in my brows. Mine is in the shade Soft Brown, but honestly, I go between this and whatever the slightly deeper shade is. They look pretty similar on my brows. And then to set all of that into place and add a little bit of fluff and volume, I use the Anastasia Dip Brow Gel and in the shade Medium Brown. I've also already done one eye. I was gonna do both eyes just kind of on the fly here, but I'm kind of glad I did the one. I figured I would take pictures of this one to create a little Pinterest tutorial, and the look came out. I was planning on doing like a soft neutral look with some brown liner, and that is not this. This is definitely purples and berries. I love it, but it is definitely not what I had in mind for this look. Now I'm gonna zoom you in a little bit more so you can see what I'm doing. So first I'm starting out with one of the lightest two shades in this palette. I'm going for the warmer mustard leaning tone as opposed to the peach shade in here. And I'm taking this on an Esam G29 brush. This is really great for all over shading, but also still has a good amount of width to it if you also just wanna use this as kind of a one and done shade to not only blend this all over the lid like I'm doing here, but also you can see I could work that up into the crease as well with the edge of that brush. And I'm just applying this shade, I mean exactly like you're seeing it here, patting it all over my lid from the outer corner to the inner corner. Now going into something a little bit deeper, I'm reaching for one of these mid-tone browns, the cooler one of what I would say are basically three in here. One's more red, one's more orange, and one is definitely cooler. So that's the one that I'm reaching for here. And I'm going to use an Esam W35 brush to pat that in my outer corner, pretty much into my outer half of my lid. And then use the interesting shape of this brush. You can say it's nice and fluffy, but it's also angled here. And I like to use that to apply it and then really start working it up in a more precise way in my crease. That tapered edge right there really helps you be a little bit more precise than say using something like the last brush that I did where the edge is a little bit fluffier and wider. And I am smoking this out quite a bit, going up pretty high on my brow bone and also bringing it up basically till I meet my brow up here in the inner socket to create a more blown out smoky eye effect, but still on the lid, keeping that shade to the outer half. Now for the plum, I am using the Plum, the deepest purple shade in this palette, and this is on an Esam S31 brush. I love these kinds of brushes, basically like a small, dense, domed brush. This is what I love to use to accent my outer corner because it's super easy to just stamp right out there to really build the pigment where you want it most intense, but it still has a little bit of fluff in there to then help you drag it in to the rest of your eyelid as you really want to sheer out the rest of that pigment. And that is exactly what I do with this. I kind of alternate, load my brush up, go bounce it out there, and then start shearing it out. And then while I am doing that, basically when I get sick of this back and forth, I will take a little break to use that same brush and drag it along that same shade along my lower lash line. Again, another reason why I love a brush like this, because it does the lower lash line smoking for you. So often when I use a brush that's too precise, too thin, not fluffy enough, it takes so much back and forth on my lower lash line to really build it up. And this is like the perfect width, especially here in the outer corner, my words today, to just kind of get it done in a couple of swipes. And if this looks a little unblended to you, don't worry. I have another kind of blending shade to help smooth it all out. I'm going in with the deep cranberry shade in this palette. There's a beautiful vibrant berry that I'm going to use on my cheeks, but for now I'm going in with this berry shade right here. This is on another Esom W23 brush, like a flat shader, has a little bit of fluff to it, but is by far the flattest I've used so far and really good for packing on pigment. So I'm going to pat that basically in the transition between that deep plum and everything else going on the rest of my lid, taking care not to bring it too far in. I still want that lightest mustard shade to be really visible on the inner corner, but I also want to keep everything blended out here. So I really go lightly with this and layer it up slowly because all of these shades, but this one in particular is very pigmented. And so to avoid like a red splotch, a berry splotch in the center of my lid, I just go in ever so gently with that. And then to make sure everything is super blended, I go back in with that W35 and I just blend out all those lines, making sure that that purple out there isn't too intense, that I still keep it most intense right on my lid in the outer corner, blending that into my crease, and then just making sure that these few deeper shades on my lid are well blended. And because I blended out a little bit of that extreme plum intensity at my outer corner, I'm going to take one or two few last passes back to that small fluffy pencil type brush just to really build that pigment back up. One last blend for good measure, and that is it with the shadows. Next up, I'm gonna go in with an eyeliner. This is also from Esom. They just recently launched some color cosmetics, one of which is an eyeliner trio. Well, you can buy them individually, but eyeliner trio and the lip pencils that I will use for my lips in this look. The liner that I used here is a chocolate brown. It's one side of the gold brown duo. I didn't end up using the gold today because I wanted to keep it all matte, but I'm kind of dying to use these as either all over shadow bases or as inner corner highlighters, but haven't had a chance to try more than just this brown for now. But from my experience, they blend super smoothly. I mean, you can see the pigment is pretty intense with not more than a few swipes. And now moving on to lashes, super quick. Well, super quick in your time. Lashes always take me forever, but we'll cut that part out. I'm using my L'Oreal Voluminous Lash Paradise. This has just been my go-to for months at this point. I think honestly, this is a record for the longest I've ever used a mascara, and it's looking like it will be the only mascara I've used. Is this a fact in 2019? I think that might be true. I'd have to go back and look at my favorites videos, but I have been using this for so long I can't remember the last mascara I used before this, so it's been a while. We've been very close. And there are my lashes done. I am going to put on my magnetic accents later in the video, but want to wait for my mascara to dry, so let's do the face. In the meantime, I'm going to zoom you out so you can get a better view. Now moving on to bronzer. This palette actually has quite a few shades that are really nice for bronzer shades depending on your skin tone, and the pan sizes are actually large enough to accommodate a proper face size brush. So I'm going to go in with a mixture of shades. First starting off, actually no, I'm going to mix them simultaneously. I am combining this over here in the top row with this one on the opposite side of the palette over here in the middle row, and I'm just dabbing a couple times in one, couple times in the other, back and forth, and then I will blend that together on the back of my hand to make sure I have the perfect mixture. Otherwise, I have, you know, like when you're mixing any kind of powders that are pressed and you're trying to, you know, make magic happen, things can get kind of blotchy sometimes. So I find that blending on the back of my hand to get the perfect mix is the best way to go about it. So with that blended, I'm now gonna go in with my brush. This, by the way, is a Luxie 504 brush, a really great angled brush for contour, bronzer, bronzer. And I'm just going in very light-handed. These shades are so pigmented. I mean, you see how they show up on your eyes? You do not need to layer or go over these a lot with your face. I mean, they're just, like, that's entirely too much. I'm gonna have to work to really blend that out. Be sure and keep your foundation brush handy so that you can go in and blend these away because they are real pigmented. I mean, you could also just use like self-control with your brush and the amount of product you use and the pressure that you use, but I don't know that. Those words are not in my vocabulary, self-control. But when that's the case, just take your foundation brush and I just go in and pat that, especially on the apples of my cheeks where I know I'm gonna want more blush. I just go in, kind of dilute that blush color, keeping it still intense in the deepest hollows of my cheeks, but blending it out elsewhere and just kind of creating a little bit more subtle contrast. Okay, so now in real life, I'm gonna do the other side of my face, but I'm just going to jump to where I am done with that now. Here the bronzer is done, blended. Onto blush, I am going to use a combination of this berry pink down here and a little bit of that cranberry shade that I used in my crease. Once again, be so careful with the brush you use and the amount of product and pressure that you use here, because these are very pigmented. This is not as sparse of a brush as I would actually like to be using now. I don't even have a brush sparse enough to diffuse the product in a way that I would really like, but it's what I have on hand right now, and I'm just using the same trick where I'm going back and forth in between the pans and I am blending it out on my hand just to make sure I have A, the perfect mix, and B, a diluted mix so that it is not, you know, lots of blush. Just the lightest touch. Don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. This is taking everything in my power not to overdo it, and I overdid it. Just gonna use the rest of what I have on my brush. Now that wasn't so bad. That was actually perfect. I'm just gonna have to, yowza, blend that out a little bit. And that is it for the blush, and the nice thing about using everything from the same palette is it all coordinates nicely. Finishing everything off with the lips, like I said, I want to use one of the new Esom dual-ended lip liners. They have a nude, a red, and a pink toned one, and I feel like the pink toned one is going to flatter this one best, given the tones in my eyes and cheeks. So this one is the dual lip pencil in Plum, and there is a deep plum and then a light soft mauve-y kind of plum. I'm gonna go with the light soft mauve version for this look. This actually might be a really good shade to overline my lips with, because it's kind of like a Your Lips but better shade for me, so I'm gonna go for a little bit of an overline. Alrighty, so there I have lined, kind of overlined, and filled my lips. And then for a glossy touch, I'm gonna go in with my Danessa Myricks Color Fix Glaze. This one has a hint of glitter in it, although I really do like this as is. I feel like a little bit of shine would just make my lips look a teensy bit bigger. Just using that on my finger and patting that all over my lips. I almost forgot my lashes. This look is nearly done, but I do want to put those magnetic lashes on. These are the Ardell Magnetic Accents. I'm not going to talk you through how I apply them. I actually I have a longer video here on YouTube, like really diving into magnetic lashes, what I like, why I like to wear them, but most recently, I uploaded a much shorter, like 3-minute video to Instagram or IGTV, just with some quick tips, kind of condensing that initial video into a much shorter video with quick tips for how I like to apply these so that they are as fast as that. All right, now that the lashes are done, the look is complete. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Whether or not you're interested in this particular palette from Viseart or not, honestly, a lot of these shadows, I'm sure you can find them in what you already have at home, but hopefully this was just giving you an idea for what you could do with those shadows, and also just putting the idea in your head, because I know I forget so often, but like the powders that you have in your shadows palettes can be used for so much more than that, on your face, on your body, like whatever you need to use them for. It just really opens up the possibilities for any shadow palette you might have in your collection. So I hope this was, you know, maybe inspirational, educational, if not just plain entertaining. I hope you really liked it. Please thumbs up this video if you did, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I will catch you in the next video, guys. Bye!